Everyone, hello. I'd like to call our governing board meeting for September 20th to order at 5:19. Ms. Miriam, may we please have roll call?
Carmen Trujillo,
Here.
Jessica Bueno,
Here.
Reggie Carrillo,
Here.
Alicia Vink, Laura Diaz.
Thank you. With three of us here, we do have a quorum present and can proceed. I did skip over our tribute, so let me put time into that. In partnership with the tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. With that, can we please have the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Quintana? Thank you very much. With that, Dr. Davila Hagiga, do you have any recommendations for our agenda this evening?
We ask that we adopt it as it is.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion to adopt our agenda as presented?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? With that, may we please have a roll call vote, Ms. Miriam, to adopt our agenda this evening?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo.
Aye.
With that, our motion does pass. And we will begin. Not with that one. With our awards, recognitions, and announcements. And I'm going to take the first one here. For our first one, Kenilworth School launched their Fun Town Tuesdays as a community enrichment opportunity for students. Recently, students participated in STEM-related activities thanks to our community partners. Activities included making windmills with Challenge Island, dissecting computers with Gen Tech, building and launching rockets with Sticks, Little Minds computer coding with our friends from the Phoenix Public Library, and students learning to play chess thanks to Magnus. Students had a blast participating in these hands-on STEM activities. Thank you.
Rainbow Pack Arizona donated backpacks and school supplies for all students at Paul Lawrence Dunbar School. And they are also partnering with the school to provide social emotional well-being and mindfulness opportunities with the help of their mindful friends, Omi and Friends. Rainbow Pack is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing elementary school kids with the basic supplies that they need to do well in school. Thank you for partnering with Dunbar School and making a difference in the lives of our students.
A special thanks to Kids Need to Read for their generous book donation to Whittier School. The books will be used for classroom libraries, and teachers and students are excited to have new books to read. Thank you for your support of Whittier School. Kenilworth School is transforming the chain link fence near the 7th Avenue pedestrian bridge with a mural designed and created by students using cup art and colored plastic cups designed as art murals. 5th through 8th grade students spend time during recess to build the mural. The artwork not only beautifies the playground, but it will also be a masterpiece enjoyed by the community. Awesome.
Bird School hosted their first Wonder Wednesday highlighting creative projects in the STEM field. Students showcased their current work. In addition, our partners at the SciTech Institute, along with the mascot Nova the Gecko, was on hand to support Herd in their STEM efforts. In addition, a big thank you to to SciTech Festival and Barrett Jackson for selecting Hurd School to host a live news segment announcing a new STEM project here in Arizona. Our Hurd students were able to showcase some of the STEM projects they have been working on during the live news segment. Okay. Phoenix #1 appreciates our families partnering with our schools, and our sites have hosted a number of family engagement opportunities. Shaw Montessori Site Council and PTA started the year strong. At their first meeting, families discussed social safety and opportunities for growth. They also created a new resource for families called the Shaw ABCs, Guide for New Families. Next, Mr. Joseph Fuentes, principal at Edison School, recently hosted a parent cafecito discussions focused on building relationships and ways in which parents can become involved at the school. Congratulations to Mr. Fuentes and Ms. Sylvia Mendez, the family engagement specialist, for organizing a highly engaging family event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, team. With that, we'll move on to our superintendent's report.
Thank you. Today, I get the opportunity to highlight two individuals. Our Phoenix #1 staff continue to make connections within our community. And tonight, I'd like to highlight Dr. Victor Diaz, Director of Human Resources, for recently being featured in Grand Canyon University's Top of the Class podcast, which is developed by educators for educators. This podcast focuses on back to school basics and providing information on what it takes to get a school ready for students to come back to school each fall. Dr. Diaz did a great job in promoting Phoenix #1, career pathways in education, how you create your teacher and leadership teams that are diverse and create conditions for our team to thrive, among other topics. Thank you, Dr. Diaz, for continuing to share your knowledge and passion with educators across the state. Our next one, congratulations to Katie Pettit, IEIS at Whittier, for receiving her doctorate degree. Earning your doctorate is no easy task, and we are so proud of Dr. Pettit for continuing her lifelong journey of learning. Congratulations to you and your family. And that is all for my comments tonight.
Right, thank you very much for sharing those celebrations with us. Yes, I've seen a few of colleagues of mine go through that process, and it is no easy task. So with that, we'll move on to our board reports. My report would just be that we did have a very successful a really interesting, good, innovative conversation at our board retreat last week. And we are just looking so forward to working together and just growing our district and being a better team than we already are. And I thank you all for collaborating with us on that, and making time to participate for a full 2 days. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a report, just stemming off of what was already announced with the cafecito. I was fortunate enough to just have the time to attend the cafecito by Principal Fuentes. I hadn't attended one, since I've been here, and, because of COVID, and, it was a wonderful event. Principal Fuentes had a huge turnout. So it was exciting to see that. He also had translation services, by Sylvia Mendez and others in attendance, translating in Spanish to a large Spanish speaking, parent attendees. And so it was awesome just to walk in there and see that. The meeting, I was a little tardy, but when I walked in there, they're already in the full swing of things, having engaging activities. So it wasn't just Principal Fuentes just talking at teachers or to teachers, but Sylvia Mendez and them did a great job facilitating and providing engaging activities for them to engage with what their concerns were, what they care about. Vice President Bueno was in attendance too, and I was proud to see our superintendent pop in and again just bridge that gap, that language barrier, speaking Spanish to our families who are monolingual or bilingual Spanish speakers, to see that representation from our Phoenix Elementary leadership. And then big shout out to Sylvia Mendez. I know she was mentioned already, but she did a great job supporting the cafecito. And then there was a teacher too who got a shout out at the school. I'm not too, feel like I wrote it down, but there was a principal at Edison who got a shout out from the parents. I wish I could remember. I apologize. But great job to the teachers at Edison. And then I think her name was Virginia. Virginia, she got a shout out too. I was trying to note everything down. But just a call to action if principals are having other cafecitos, I'd love to be invited and attend those. And if you need any tips and tricks, speak with Principal Fuentes or whoever he spoke with. So great job to everybody, and I look forward to seeing more of those this school year. And then my last one is just being thankful and gratitude to the Phoenix Style Cabinet team for being in attendance, and to our board president and vice president for putting the board retreat together. It is a long time coming. We had planned one before we had with the previous superintendent. But however, we were in the process of hiring new superintendents. So we pushed that meeting off. And so it was exciting to finally have someone come together and just remind the board what we're focused on, what we should be focused on, what students and student outcomes, and just provide a framework that'll help us guide us to get there, increase student outcomes, increase student achievement, and just their overall experience at Phoenix Style. So thank you. I'm glad we were able to do that, and look forward to what our next steps are. That's all.
Thank you very much. You always articulate those things that are in my head so much better than I am able to. With that, we'll move on to our community communications. How many do we have electronically today?
I only have one.
Okay, I'm seeing that we have 4 in person. Let's do the electronic one first, and then we'll go down the line here.
First one is from Grazelia Duran. I am a teacher at Whittier Elementary School located at 2000 North 16th Street in Phoenix. I would like to thank PECTA and Marnie Burris for getting us our additional $1,500 base increase to our salaries. Without the hard work of our PECTA president and meet and confer team, we would not have had such success in getting our very necessary pay raises this school year. This is the second time this school year that PECTA has been successful at getting teachers the increases to base salaries that we needed. For me, this extra money means I can feel better when I go to grocery shopping. As we all know, inflation is at an all-time high of 13% in the state of Arizona. Ideally, something like pumping gas or buying new clothes to wear in the classroom wouldn't be so anxiety-inducing for Arizona teachers. The reality is that Arizona teachers are feeling anxiety when making everyday purchases. Increases to our base pay are a crucial part to staying in the classroom and the state. Our talent and passion is not enough to feed our families. So again, base increases like this are much needed for teachers and school staff. Thank you, PECTA, for all you do and have done for teachers and staff at Phoenix One School District.
Well, thank you very much, Miss Miriam. So now's the time for our public to come in comment to the board, and we'll do the normal 3-minute increments for each one. And our first one this evening will be Haley Honeman. I hope I said that correctly. Welcome and thank you for making time to be here.
Push. There we go. Dear Superintendent Hagigat, President Trujillo, and members of the board and Phoenix Elementary staff. Good evening. My name is Haley Honeman, and I'm a proud member of PECTA and a drama teacher at Herrera School for the Arts and Dual Language. I want to take time to thank the district and the board for their support in reopening Meet and Confer after the allocation of additional funds from the state. I want to thank staff who worked to look into the viability of a pay increase for all of the staff in the district. It sends a message to staff during a statewide teacher shortage that the district values paying their staff a living wage. I hope that the board approves tonight's proposed pay increases. I know it will make a big difference for me. We are in this profession to make a difference, and when we feel valued, together we will thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Haley. With that, may we please welcome Nicole Goodwin up? Thank you for being here.
Good evening, governing board members, and to our new superintendent. I am a proud teacher at Whittier and I'm treasurer of PECTA. First, I want to thank PECTA's Meet and Confer team for going to the Capitol this summer with Arizona Education Association to increase funding for public education. And then working for months to get Meet and Confer reopened to get the funding in our staff members' pockets. Thank you, PECTA, and thank you in advance, governing board. I hope you vote to approve this tonight. I also have an ask tonight. I requested to take some time off, and for the first time ever, it was denied because we have difficulty getting substitutes. I know my principal is right, and that this was not a personal decision for him. When I was sick last month, the interventionists had to substitute for me. But this is my 9th year here, and I have 51 unused PTO days. That's 2.5 months of PTO days. I try not to take my PTO days because I know what's best for my students is for me to be in the classroom with them. Currently, if a staff member leaves the district, these days are lost. If I can't use my days and I won't be paid for them, how is our PTO time a benefit? How is PTO anything more than a number in a computer? My ask is that we pay these out when staff members leave and that we continue to work to hire substitutes. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. With that, we will welcome Ms. Marnie Burris. Please come up. Thank you for being here.
For the record, I think Miss Marnie's kind of cool. Like, no last name needed. All right, good evening, Dr. Hagigat, President Trujillo, and members of the board. My name is Marnie Burris, and I am the PECTA president and a 4th grade teacher at Emerson Elementary School. Before I begin my community comment, I want to say a few words of thanks. Thank you to Dr. Diaz, the HR staff, and everyone else at district who pitched in to stuff envelopes to get contract addendums out earlier this month. Thank you to Board Vice President Jessica Bueno for attending Meet and Confer to support both the district and PECTA Meet and Confer teams, and also attending the PECTA all-member meeting to speak about the upcoming bond election. Thank you to Mr. Brant Lloyd, who came to Emerson last week and covered my lunch when there was literally nobody. We were down several staff members. It was very much appreciated. And then also to Dr. Gonzalez for coming to Emerson to support and advise a proposed model to support students in the wake of a teacher resignation. And then again, I would also like to thank PECTA members for being down at the Capitol this summer in 110-degree heat, speaking with the folks who called us educational terrorists. You guys are the reason I wake up every morning. So thank you so much for everything you do. I know these are a few examples and they're just a drop in the bucket of what is being done. I often tell my 4th graders that integrity is doing the right thing, even when nobody is watching. And I can't overstate how much I appreciate that although we face another unprecedented times COVID school year, that we're all in this and we're weathering this storm together. I'm here tonight to thank both district administration and the board for your collaboration in reopening negotiations regarding a $1,500 increase to certified staff base salaries in recognition of the money brought in from increases to the state budget over the summer. Tonight, the board will be receiving this proposal for a vote, and I ask that when the board makes its decision, they keep in mind how thinly all staff across district are spreading themselves to cover classes, change grade levels, redevelop master schedules, after staff resignations, cover duties, write IEPs, provide interventions, coach sports, and the ever-growing list of tasks they perform to keep schools open and students learning. I ask you to vote yes because you realize that our staff deserve compensation commensurate with the effort they put in daily for our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. And just to clarify, I read Burns, but I knew that was wrong. So that's why my delay was here. May we please welcome Jason Parsons up. Thank you for being here.
Hi, my name is Jason Parsons, and I'm a proud autistic and a leader in our community. And I've been at Emerson since last November, building bridges between the autistic advocacy community and the educational community and parents in order to improve the quality of education for all of our students. And on Friday, okay, Deborah, Deborah Gonzalez and I had a talk about as much of my vision as we were able to get in, because she's really busy, but we had a good talk and about the needs of the autism classrooms and as far as today me and my fellow IA in my classroom took working lunches because we did not have anybody to come in and to relieve us. So I went in. I clocked out, went back to my room and helped kept an eye on the kids while I ate. And then the other IA did the same thing because our lead teacher was out. And so anyway, the staffing shortages are all along the lines. And anyways, and so and I do want to thank Ms. Gonzalez for considering me to work with the family and community. Could you just
The
Engagement specialist. Now I'm gonna dub for Dr. Gonzalez.
so anyways, and so it's going to give me an opportunity to to not only help the families with autistic children, but in the email I sent her today, 10 years for my diagnosis, 2009, I was helping the refugee community as a volunteer English teacher and volunteer social worker. And so I already have some experience in this type of stuff. I might be a little outdated because things changed in the last 15 years, 10, 15 years. So I will need to be updated, but I'm definitely looking forward to to expand my role with the district and not only help my autism community, but all the families here in the Phoenix Elementary School District. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for coming, spend some part of your evening with us. We appreciate you. And although we can't comment on our board comments, our superintendent and Dr. Gonzalez, our cabinet is here to be able to close those gaps and start those discussions. So that way you definitely feel heard. And if we need to be adding something to a future agenda, we'll get that done. With that, let's move on to item E, the approval of our consent agenda. Dr. Davila Hagigat, do we have any recommendations for our consent agenda this evening?
We recommend that it be approved as presented.
Wonderful. Do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you. May we please, any discussion? Thank you. May we please have a roll call vote, Ms. Miriam?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo.
Aye.
Thank you very much. With that, our motion passes. And just to clarify, our consent agenda lists several items for approval by the board in a single motion. The items listed under the consent agenda have gone through the entire superintendent's cabinet review, and the board has also had a chance to look at that and ask questions. Documentation concerning these items has been provided to all the board members and the public on our agenda. So just to clarify what that is. And with that, we will move on to our discussion. Item, is it F? Perfect. Who's going to be presenting on that? Is it Dr. Gonzalez? No? Yeah, maybe so. Let's look. Maybe Dr. Diaz?
I will help you on this one.
Thank you.
Yes, we wanted to bring this item here as one of our board requests regarding our opportunity to open up discussion for community listening sessions so that we can acquire input and feedback on goals. As part of our retreat, we were able to really focus on our board's journey of setting goals. And so it's very important for us to listen to our community, for our board to understand what are some of the interests so that we can weave those into our priority goals as we continue our journey together. So today, this is brought in as discussion so that we can better understand our board's interest and start setting up some of those listening sessions so that you can get the input and the feedback from our community.
Thank you, Dr. Davila. I apologize. I have the two discussion items transposed, and so this is actually my request. So I just wanted to definitely give space to hear from, I've gotten to talk to Ms. Bueno about what that looks like, what your vision is for when the board does connect with the community, how we collect that information. So I just kind of wanted to get the other board members' perspectives on what that looks like to you, because I'm sure that might look different to us, especially with the Cafecitos experience. Like, that's what I kind of want to know about is the turnout. How does that go? Like, is that all principal based? So this was just a space to be able to talk about what your vision is for community listening opportunities in the next few months.
Can I defer to Vice President Bueno to just give me a review of what her vision is?
Yeah, I would like to share that the board moving towards opening up to the community and having these listening discussions is like a dream come true, because we really did want to engage with the community. As Dr. Hagigat shared, the board is going to come up with some goals for cabinet and Dr. Hagigat. And in order for those goals to be successful, we need to include our community. And so part of the listening session is updating them on all the work that we're going to be doing as a board, and sharing those lessons with our community. So I think we're open to just discussing what does that look like. And I guess to me, it would be, once a month, having some type of community engagement at each one of our sites. But I would defer to staff to figure out what does that look like. But overall, I just wanted to share the message that we're open and wanting to get community engagement at each one of our sites.
Yeah, I support that. I think too is just accessibility. The only thing I could add on to that, and I'll continue to provide input as I process this is virtual meetings, of course, like we're already having them, but also like having virtual options that are not in person, where people can just log in and this discussion can take place virtually. I think too, if not just in schools, at nearby community asset spaces, cafes, parks, anything like that where people, families, students are just naturally visiting. I think that would support our goal to get community turnout. If the schools are, we decide not to just go with the school spaces.
Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. Thank you, Ms. Bueno. So many other ideas just popped in my head, and it made me think of like when we attend other community events and things like that where we table. I don't know if we have items to table events and things like that to be a resource to, but that's something I definitely have seen other districts do that I would like to. I'm glad you brought up the point of virtual options, because some groups that I am participatory in, I like when, if I can't make the meeting, there's minutes, accessible that says, hey, this is what happened or whatever. So I think that's a great idea, but you've also raised a good point that we need to be mindful of what our principals already have going on and have parents have going on, but definitely making it so it's a win-win situation for everybody, and it's not going to be added work or imposing things, because literally this process is just to gain clarity from our community so the board can get our vision correct and we make sure that we are accessible and can plan all of our big plans that we're doing, definitely with our community's voice at heart. Any questions you have, Ms. Jeffries? Since we're definitely gonna need your help, in the middle here and there. Anything the board could do to kind of better prepare, or maybe give information we could give you on what all this might look like, so you could help us organize a few of these?
Thank you, President Trujillo. Thank you for this great information. I will definitely work with Dr. Hagigat and further discuss your vision, and we'll work closely together so that we can be sure that we are planning events throughout the community and at our school sites, and in terms of what the governing board is looking for. So I'll work with Dr. Hagigat for additional resources and provide some updates to the board.
Great, thank you so very much. Dr. Diaz, I see your picture pop up. Might you be available? Sometimes.
Hi, Madam President. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am. So briefly, this item that we're on, I was just trying to get other board members' perspectives on what their vision is for our community listening sessions that we learned about in our retreat. So if you have time and you're not driving, you're safe somewhere, I would love to hear from you, but we can always figure something else out if you're not able to.
I am currently coming home from work.
Zoom.
I'll be home in about 5 minutes.
No
Can
worries.
I have the other board members shared?
Yes, we have. So
Okay.
we can definitely connect back at the end of our meeting with our board requests and things like that. If that's
Okay,
okay,
sounds-
that would
yeah.
give you time to settle in. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Any other input questions for us? I didn't want to take too much of our time this meeting, but I think I got a good grasp on at least where we're going with it.
Is President Trujillo, will this be led by the district, or will this be led by our retreat facilitators?
See, that was another one of my questions, and it really is going to be led by us.
Okay,
So that's why it's just, I wanted to give space for us to be able to talk about, because we don't ever get those opportunities unless we're
Mhm.
here. And then all we did was learn about them at our board retreat so we could stay on track with our agenda. But now that it's so close, it's like, we've been wanting them, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't even know where to start. So it really is going to all be led by us, because sometimes we won't be able to all be there at once, and we'll have to partner up and then figure out getting information to Dr. Hagigat and Linda. I guess, but it will be monitored by our school board retreat agency. I don't even know what to call them, but the people facilitating our new endeavors, I guess, on school board governance. So I hope that answered your question.
yes, thank you.
All right, hearing nothing else, that was just an item for discussion. We will move on to item G. Our request for approval of designated administrators as qualified evaluators of certificated staff. Who will be presenting? Miss Dr. Gonzalez, welcome. Good to see you.
Good evening, Madam President, board member, Superintendent Davila Hagigat, and our viewing community. This is a quick presentation, but it's an important presentation because, as you know, we are working on ensuring that our students have the very best teachers in the classroom. And part of that is how we define our qualified evaluators. And so this evening, we wanted to come to you to present our theory of action around qualified evaluators and the practices that they bring to us, looking at our strategic plan and equity goals, the process that the people go through to become qualified evaluators. And then we're fortunate to have many of our presenters in the audience, as well as our newest members of the qualified evaluators cadre. So when we look at our theory of action, you will notice that we begin with the inputs of having highly trained administrators and an evaluation tool that supports continuous improvement of practice. You'll recall last spring, under Ms. Nikolich's guidance and leadership, we developed a new Phoenix Learning Observation Instrument to help ensure that we are focused on instruction and continuous improvement rather than a one-shot opportunity to show what you know and are able to do. When we have these inputs, our outputs are a common vocabulary and shared expectations between administration and our teaching staff, but also with our families and our students. And the end output from all of this is that we're creating engaging and inviting classrooms for our students. And of course, when we have those things, we're able to measure our outcome in terms of improved teacher effectiveness and improved student achievement. So we wanted to ground the work that we're doing in this theory of action and ensure that we're all understanding how this shift is occurring. So, oops, I'm pressing the wrong way. So our strategic plan goals are around ensuring that every child has a rigorous, relevant, and research-based curriculum, that we hire, retain, and develop highly motivated and effective staff. And we've heard a lot of comments about the critical importance of hiring and retaining staff. We also want to ensure that in everything that we do, we're keeping our students at the heart of every decision. In our equity goals, we have specific goals that we're working on in terms of providing training for school staff to work effectively, especially in recognizing differences that students have in diverse backgrounds. We want to make sure that we're providing highly trained expert educators, that we are providing access to those expert educators and building capacity to empower our stakeholders so that everyone in the community is an equity champion for our students. So the process of becoming a highly qualified evaluator, the participants go through 30 hours of training, and the training includes opportunity for them to watch video and then assess the video, and they have to come to agreement about how to score. There's what we call the gold standard for if you are scoring accurately, you will come within 1 point of making sure that you're scoring in the same vein. So as they learn the different standards, they watch video and they have to practice. They had a lot of homework that they had to do in addition to the face-to-face training. But in that, they had to be able to describe the structure and the content of the rubrics in the Phoenix Learning Observation Instrument. And they had to accurately record and analyze evidence, both from the pre-conference, the observation, and the post-conference, and establish inter-rater reliability. So that's that part where they have to ensure that they are consistent with the group that has already established what the standard is.
Dr. Gonzalez, I may have missed it, but can you really quickly go through what evaluator does and the relationship between the evaluator and the teacher, I'm thinking?
Sure. So the evaluator is an important component of this. The first step is, well, there are many components to the Phoenix Learning Observation Instrument. One of those is a teacher action plan, and the teacher action plan is goal setting that they set with their evaluator or with their administrator to be able to identify an area that they want to focus on to improve their practice. So right now, many of our teachers are working on deconstructing standards so that they can identify how to break the standard into a daily learning target that students know they will be able to do at the end of every lesson. The other aspect to that is when you come into a classroom that you see what teachers are doing, how they're teaching, how they're engaging the students, the kinds of questions that they're asking. And what we've switched in this is that it's not based on a single performance or even two performances, but you're getting regular feedback from the evaluator in the form of a walkthrough. So this is informal feedback that is that just in time to come in and say, Mr. Carrillo, I noticed today in your classroom, you were doing a really great job asking higher order questions. What were some of the things that you saw students responded to best? So it's that quick, immediate feedback to teachers to help them grow in their practice. And it doesn't have to wait until a formal observation. They're able to get that feedback whenever somebody is coming into their classroom who's gone through this training to give them specific feedback to help their practice. And then, of course, there is the formal observation. So there is still an opportunity for you to know what you're going to do ahead of time, to set your planning and everything really carefully, and to have a conversation with your evaluator to say, this is what I'm aiming to accomplish. This is what I'm hoping you'll be able to see when you come in. And then you watch that, and then you have a follow-up conversation with your administrator as well, because sometimes even when we've done all of our careful planning, things don't always go the way we expect, but it's that conversation afterward to be able to say, you did a great job on this, but talk to me more about the choice that you made when this happened. And having that conversation back and forth so that we understand what's working, where do you need support, and how do we better support your practice in the classroom? And are we looking at our evidences of student learning in that process? So that's in a nutshell, the entire process. It is a robust process. And as we said earlier, it's about continuous improvement. So it's not just the one and done, but it's all of these different measures to be able to measure this.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so that's why all of these components are really critically important. So when we come to this year, we also changed things up a little bit. We were very fortunate to have Ms. Leslie Beecham from MCCSO, who has been our trainer for many years, but because our real grant has ended, she is moving on to other aspects of her work there. And so we're taking this on ourselves, but she helped lead the effort and making sure that we were following all the guidelines that we need to do. And she also celebrated a birthday this weekend. So this is a nice opportunity for us to say thank you to her and happy birthday. I was part of the training, as was Ms. Nikolic, and then we also included principles that we have observed over our own experience in observing our principals and the ways in which they evaluate, to include them in this process so that they can teach our next cadre based on the great jobs that they do. And so we have Principal Lodato from Emerson, Principal Botts from Capital, and Principal Petrangeli from Kenilworth. And they are also here in the audience today. And so now I'm excited to introduce our latest evaluator. So we have Mr. CJ Davis, who's the IEIS at Capital. And we have Ms. Angela Eddington, the IEIS at Faith North. Ms. Daniel Randall, the IEIS at Hurd. And she was in a meeting with us until 5:10, so she's probably not able to be here. And then we have Rosalia Bruman at Kenilworth. She is also in a meeting. Dr. Katie Pettit, our new doctor at Whittier, and Miss Shelley Curry, the IEIS at Shaw Montessori. So what we are hoping is that you will be willing to approve this new list of qualified evaluators along with all the other people who have already completed the training in this board request. Thank you.
Dr. Gonzalez, I was really excited. I mean, it was great reading it, but it's also nice to hear your personal touch on it. So it sounds like a mentorship / coordination of some sort. And I think it's really important that we do have these roles, and this grows way bigger than whatever it is now. So I just wanted to say I'm grateful that this is new. Happy birthday to Ms. Beecham. And congratulations to Dr. Pettit. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And there are members of the audience who helped to design the Phoenix LOI. And so the members of the audience who participated in the design of the Phoenix LOI, would they like to stand up?
Can wave at us. Thank you.
for doing that.
They're very shy. But we couldn't have done this without the input of our teachers, and they were really advocates for making sure that this is about continuous growth. So we're incredibly appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Music to my ears. I didn't want to be negative Nelly and say, do the teachers know about this? So I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to approve our designated administrators as qualified evaluators?
I motion that we approve the qualified evaluators.
Just a comment, congratulations to the evaluators. You've been given a huge responsibility and role, impacting the lives of our teachers in our school. As a former teacher, I understand that dynamic and, thank you for all the support you're about to provide our teachers. I appreciate you and, with that, I second.
Thank you both very much. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, do we have, may we please have a roll call vote, Ms. Miriam, to approve this item?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
Laura Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you. With that, our motion passes and congratulations, guys. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to item number 2, the request to approve our award for our RFP for our classification and compensation study services.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. For this presentation, we have our management of procurement, Ms. Monique Harris, that's going to be presenting the information.
Good evening, Madam Trio and the governing board.
Welcome,
And
welcome.
I'm happy to come here tonight to present our classification and compensation study, RFP. So I would like to first start to talk about our purpose, though you're very well aware of the purpose of this, but it has been several years that the district's compensation structure has been reviewed and salary schedules and salary placements have been reviewed and revised to ensure that the internal equity and overall market competitiveness. So the purpose of soliciting for this RFP was so that we can now have a vendor to review our compensation and classification. As I told you the last time I presented my RFP process, I like to be very consistent. This looks exactly the same because I want you to always see that my process is consistent. We did project planning, and I have on here the month of October because this is actually my second time doing this procurement. So we did one in October. We only had one proposal, and so we decided that we needed to revise the scope of work and compete this again. So we went back out in March. We got a group together, revised the scope of work. In April, we finalized that scope of work. And then in May, we distribute our new RFP. And I say RFP, I should explain what that acronym is. It's Request for a Proposal. It's our formal solicitation process. And so we distribute that to 160 vendors on May 6th. And then we had 7 acceptable submissions in June. In the month of July, we evaluated the proposals. We decided that it was in the best interest to do a best and final, which allows us to negotiate and have interviews with the participating vendors. So we selected 2 finalists. We had a best and final, and then in August, we evaluated those proposals out of the best and final and determined that there was one vendor who would be the most advantageous for our district. So that brings us here tonight to have JB Reward System as the recommended vendor for this award. So I'm very grateful that we had such a strong committee for this evaluation. We had Sarah Sims, who is the Special Population Coordinator for our district. We had Dr. Seth Alshire, who's the Coordinator for Student Success. We had Miss Marnie Boris, who's our teacher who was speaking earlier tonight. And then we had Mr. John Franklin, who was the person taking pictures of Marnie when she was speaking. We had Mr. Martin Katana, the Chief Operation Officer, Dr. Victor Diaz, our Director of Human Resource, and myself, the Procurement and Materials Manager. And so in the process, we had our criteria that we were evaluating. Of course, price is always one of those main factors, but we also evaluated the method of approach, the qualifications and experience, and the responsiveness of the vendor. I like to always share this because anytime that you're having federal language in a solicitation, you're required by federal law to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm not going to read the language. I just wanted to make sure that I made note of that we were compliant with that federal law. And you see my vendor classification of vendors who actually reviewed this solicitation. We actually asked the board in March of this year to approve a multi-year term. While this is a project that we're initiating this year, it is a project that has a 5-year term. So this contract is going to be a 5-year term. If we need to have services for the upcoming years, we have this same vendor who's going to become very will understand our district, understand our culture. So we saw it as being advantageous to award one vendor, but for multiple years. We foresee the service costs for this classification study service to be $40,000 annually. But if we were to decide to renew his contract, their contract rather, then we'll determine that based on the need of the district and the available funds. The vendor has stated in their proposal that they will be ready to start this process on October 25th of this year. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit from their proposal. So the upcoming slides I pulled from JB Reward Systems proposal. They are new to our market. They've been in the Phoenix market for 3 years. And one of their main goals is to redefine a competitive environment from poorly designed pay practices and create dynamic programs. 3 of the things that I pulled from their proposal that are deliverables from what they have stated that they could give us was they would be able to update the internal alignment of our jobs. They will be able to establish a market responsive salary structure that is cost effective, competitive among peer districts, and that they'll be able to maintain a program once it's implemented. And thirdly, they'll be able to be available to modernize our job descriptions to reflect any current or emerging job designs. 3 of their services that they offered in their proposal is that they have a computer aided tool that will help expedite the job alignment process. They have stated that they will commit 230 professional hours over about a period of 100 days, and that they will also design our job classification system, salary structures, developing cost-effective implementation steps, and then leaving the district with a state-of-the-art decision support for budgeting, job evaluation, and compliance. So what our timeline looks like for this project, tonight we're asking the governing board for approval of this award. I will officially award the contract on my electronic platform. And then we will have a kickoff meeting with the awarded vendor with the project leads, which would be Dr. Diaz and Mr. Quintana. And then again, according to the proposal that the vendor submitted, they tell us that they'll start with the startup process. They'll conduct the job analysis studies, the job evaluation, the salary survey, the structure, equity, costing, Then they will move on to implementation and training. And then lastly, we'll have our reports and presentations. So at this point, we're again asking for the board and recommending that JB reward system is awarded this compensation and classification study. Any questions?
Yes, I do have a question. Thank you so much for this presentation. Under the services slide, they said that they're committed to devoting about 230 professional hours. Who are they providing those professional hours to?
Well, in their proposal, they discuss the time frame that it would take and the amount of hours. So when they say professional hours, they were indicating that these were the hours that they would be provided to the district in service of reviewing our current classification and compensation structure. And then again, the process of revising those and comparing that with the peer districts to make sure that it's equal.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for including the overall picture, especially how we did attempt this and we needed to go back to the drawing table. I think that's probably been, I mean, it happens everywhere. But when you don't know that that's what's going on, it can be super frustrating. And I just want to share that since you've joined the Phoenix L team, everything's grown, become so transparent, a lot more understandable. So I'm grateful for all the work you put in to make this an understandable process. So we were able to learn more and be better for our district. So thank you very much for that. So I just want to clarify that what I'm hearing is that ultimately they're going to mentor us through getting, our classification and compensation items, up to par. And then at some point we'll be able to we won't have to rely on them. This is a plan for them to come in, show us how to do things, to modernize, and then be kind of on our own.
Yes,
Okay.
so the reason why it's a 5-year contract, I've done these studies before, and I've seen how we've awarded vendors at my previous positions. And then 2 or 3 years later, you need them again.
Yeah.
What you don't want to do is have to do another procurement, and then you may get someone else who's not, they don't know our
Different
culture, they don't
board,
know
yeah.
our structure, they'll have to relearn it. So it's just advantageous for the district to have this vendor in place, even though they'll be performing for just this year. The possibility of needing them in the future, we won't have to do another procurement for them.
Agreed. So they'll be able to see what's going on with us and still be able to help us long-term.
Yes.
Not going on as if we have something going on, but just be there, ongoing, I guess. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
And I also would like to share with the fact that we went out again and did this a second time. We're not the only district that's struggling with this particular procurement. I've had several school districts reach out to me in this process for us to share with them our success with this because they had the same problem. They're not getting vendors to respond. So I'm happy that we're successful with our award, but we also get to share that success with other school districts.
Agreed. I was pleased to hear, to learn that we did have that part of the process where the interviews happened, the best in final, I think you called it.
Yes.
So that's reassuring as well, because of all that interaction. But I did wonder how we could participate more in the DEI part. How could I guess, will this study kind of tell us how we could do that better? I hear from other districts for when I'm asking questions that they have like a voting system. So I just wondered, I don't know, do we do all those things already? What does that look like? So that the board also knows that we are I guess the process that goes on internally that makes sure that we are addressing the DEI stuff.
Well, to answer that, one of the factors that would help contribute to promoting diversity and equity and inclusion is vendor outreach. At this point, we're not doing the level of vendor outreach. What I showed you tonight on the classification is that we do have a tool to at least capture the data. So that's very important because I have to report that during auditing. But as far as how do we do better, there's absolutely room for improvement. And one of those things is doing vendor outreach to the different classifications and get them involved in the solicitation process.
Thank you. We'll want to probably figure out how to include that in our community listening opportunities that we are about to have. So legally, I know we're not allowed to, pick and choose or, oh, I want that one. So I guess how does the district, are we able to focus on those things without seeming like there's a bias in place? How does that work in our procurement process?
Well, it's very interesting because when you're using state funds, you actually can't show preferences. That's actually against state rules. But when you're using federal funds, you have to show that you're putting forth affirmative action to include classification. It's just the opposite of what the state allows. So those steps, it's very subjective as to what those steps are. Vendor outreach, again, is just one of my opinions. And when I say vendor outreach, that's sometimes, that's different for every school district. But in my previous positions, I would go to like the Chamber of Commerce, a minority Chamber of Commerce. And also some of the cities will have events that I would attend as the procurement professional for the school district. So that can just help people understand how to participate. And then another thing that we did was at my previous school district is we had vendor outreach at the school district. We would invite people to the school district. It was free for community vendors, and we would talk to them about how to participate in the procurement process. Many vendors in these classifications never participated for a formal solicitation process. So just educating them is also very important when you're doing vendor outreach.
Thank you very much for that. So many light bulbs are popping off, which is always the case when you're educating us. But I hadn't made that distinction fully. I hear from both or from leadership entities that we can't show preference, but then we can have a scoring system. So I didn't really know what that meant, but you just put it in clear perspective for me as to why that is. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Not a question, just thank you for taking such what is, I know, a complex process and bringing it to us in very simplified, clear terms and communicating the attention to detail that you communicate in a transparent way to Board President Trujillo's comment, in a transparent way that'll hold us accountable to our community, right? About our commitment to equity and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hopefully that they come in with a process that really allows us to take an honest look at what our pay disparity is. We know it exists everywhere, and so that we can take steps to amend that. And just also one last comment, and just bringing like community comments, months, maybe years of community comments regarding this, these steps to a tangible outcome with a timeline. So we know that like our community comments, as our community comes and provides their comments, that it's turning into, you're bringing it to fruition. So that's what I love to see, that it's coming out from the card to real life. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any further comments or questions from Mrs. Harris? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion to approve our award of RFP for our classification and compensation study services?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, a second.
Last call for any discussion, any questions? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote, Ms. Miriam?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
Eloy Diaz,
Aye.
Thank you very much. With that, our motion does pass, and I'm looking forward to this partnership. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to our approval of the revised certified teacher stepless salary schedule, among other schedules. So we'll welcome Dr. Diaz up. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, members of the community, members of cabinet. What a night so far. That was huge. We've been waiting to do that for a while. And amongst the other things that were on the consent agenda, but I am so honored and admittedly a little nervous to propose compensation increases to the board. Nervous because it is quite the honor and responsibility to take this on. It reflects the hard work of so many people, and it will impact so many lives. And so very, very happy to do this today. In this agenda item, administration is recommending proposed increases to the salary schedules that are listed in the agenda. We have prepared a brief presentation in order to make sure that we're all clear on what these changes are. So in this presentation today, I will have a brief introduction and review a lot of what we talked about at the work study earlier this month with regards to our budget revenues, our options for increased compensation, and then ultimately the recommendation. The new information that you'll see today is mostly around the impact this will have on compensation, as well as the immediate next steps and things we'll look forward to in the future. We are also looking forward to the impact that this will ultimately have on our students. And I will at different times make sure to make reference to that. Because first and foremost, we do value all of our employee groups. At the same time that we want to make sure we're being fiscally responsible. We have a budget allocation that is positioned well to make sure students have the best support possible. It does take quite a balancing act to show that value through compensation while at the same time trying to remain fiscally responsible. And we think we've threaded that pretty well with what we're presenting to you today. So in terms of a budget revenue summary, this is a newer chart. We were trying to bring a little bit more clarity to essentially the variables that have changed over the past couple months. And so we honed in on 3 different time periods: the end of last school year, the middle of this summer when the budget was approved by the governing board, and where we are today. What you'll see in this chart is the couple of variables that have changed are our ADM, as well as the legislature's support of base level funding. So on May 30th, at the end of the last school year, we had an ADM of 4886. This is before a legislative increase had occurred, and our base level funding amount was $4,445 per ADM. Now, the weighted ADM, once we add the weights for students with special needs, ELLs, so on and so forth, was actually 6,616. If you do the math, 4445 times 6616, you'll come up with $29.4 million. Now, our M&O budget is bigger than 29.4. This is just the part of the M&O budget that is based on the base level support. So on July 15th, due to the advocacy of folks in AEA, our proud members of PECTA here locally, and leaders across the state, we saw historic legislative increases for which we were very, very thankful and appreciative. In that legislative increase, the base level amount increased to $4,775. And at that time, the governing board approved a budget that had a ADM of a constant of 4,886. So if you do the math there, the weighted ADM is actually higher because the legislature also increased those weights as was presented earlier in the month. And so 4,775 times a new weighted ADM of 6716 leads to $32 million. That then gets us into a position to expect a $2.6 million increase had that ADM remained the same. But then the next variable that changes is the ADM now. And so today we are still projecting an ADM of 4,668. So if we do the math on that, the weight goes down to 6464. If we multiply that times 4,775, we're left with $30.8 million. So given the decrease in the ADM, we're actually looking at a $1.2 million revenue reduction compared to the current approved budget. That does not mean that we're short $1.2 million and we're going to bounce $1.2 million worth of checks. We're nowhere near that. We're much more fiscally sound than that. It does mean, though, that the budget revision will be needed at some point to reflect that $1.2 million. And so in the work study session, Mr. Quintana and other folks, we shared the projected amount available then for compensation increases. We projected a 2.9, almost $3 million decrease in expenses, some of that out of services, some of that out of vacant roles. And then that $1.2 million decrease in revenue frees up about $1.7 million that would be available for compensation increases. So it was out of that $1.7 million that we proposed 3 different options for each employee group. And we recommended the ones that we see in gold. To review those, it is a $1 per hour increase for our support staff, a $1 per hour increase for our support staff exempt. It is a $1,500 base salary increase that I'm very happy to say that PECTA has agreed to through the meet and confer process. And then a $500 base salary increase for principals, coordinators, directors, and cabinet. When we look at the costs for all of that, the 2 numbers you'll see here, the $585,244, that's the money that all those support staff will actually receive, but it costs the district more. Once we have our ASRS matches, our payroll taxes, so on and so forth, it'll cost us more like $731,555. So in putting all of these gold recommendations together, we come up with a recommendation of about $1.69 million, just off by $5. So $1.69 million in terms of these compensation increases. The first option, again, for support staff is the $1 per hour increase, support staff exempt $1 per hour. Certified is a blended fund option where we would fund 1/3 of that through M&O and 2/3 of that through classroom site fund, where we also saw unexpected revenues. And then the principals, coordinators, directors, and cabinet, you'll see that there as well. I know this is formatted a little funky, but in terms of the $1.69 million, 1.1 of that comes from M&O. 586,000 that comes from classroom site fund. It does leave funding available to address the compensation study inequities that were discussed on the last agenda item, somewhere in the neighborhood from anywhere between $659,000 and $315,000, depending on our ability to hire for the vacancies that we currently have. So the good news is that we have a compensation plan that increases compensation, but still leaves aside funds to address the inequities we're sure to find when we do that compensation analysis. I wanted to share with the governing board tonight also what the impact of those compensation increases would be. If this proposal is approved, the minimum wage will increase to $15 an hour. And I have tingles right now saying that in a microphone because I know it's something that we have dreamed of and we've talked about quite a bit in this room. With that $15 an hour, well, the increase to $15 an hour, if we compare our minimum wage today to our minimum wage a year ago today, it is an increase of 22.5%. I did the same thing here. I should say the human resources team did this. Many thanks to them. For CN workers, peer aides on down the line, and the percentage increase change that they will have seen with this increase comparing today to a year ago today. We did the same thing with our certified staff. If this is approved, beginning teacher base salary will increase to $43,260. And if it's approved, the total compensation for a beginning teacher, once we look at additional stipends, will increase to over $46,000. That is a 7.4% base salary increase from this time last year. And if we look at our average teacher salary, comparing last year's to this year's, it will have also increased it at 6.2% if this is approved and everything stays the same. This is very important. I heard a statistic earlier this week that I wanted to share. In a meeting with ASU, they shared with us that when parents have been surveyed, do you want your child to grow up to be a teacher? Only 37% say yes. That's down almost half from 10 years ago. And a big reason for that is the perception that teachers don't make any money. And it's a perception that's been earned, as we have seen that this is a profession that is not adequately compensated commensurate to their duties. It's my hope that with these types of increases, not just in Phoenix Elementary, but across the state, that we'll start to see a change in that narrative. And we'll start to see a generation see this as the wonderful profession that it is, and that they can aspire to be for years to come. So in terms of our next steps, if approved, these increases will be retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year. New contracts and work agreements will be sent to all staff in October. And then for our certified staff, earlier tonight, the governing board approved performance-based compensation. So we will send out compensation statements that include that performance-based compensation later in 2022. With those immediate next steps, we would also start to look to the future. And the biggest thing for us looking to the future is relative to the presentation tonight is improving attendance and increasing our enrollment. Those are the variables that are most within our locus of control, as opposed to the variables that we're getting from the legislature. And so we definitely need to take steps to do both those things. We also want to continue to remain fiscally responsible in light of a continued decrease in ADM over time, because we have seen a consistent decrease in ADM over time. Through the item the governing board just approved, we will work to reduce inequities within and across our employee groups through the compensation study as funding will allow. And we'll address the sustainability of having salary schedules that don't have to rely on carry forward from year to year. We also want to move into our facilities being maintained through capital funding instead of using that to, instead of balancing that with M&O expenses. And then, of course, to continue to offer a competitive benefits package that complements the base salaries that we offer to our staff as well. So that concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions that the governing board may have.
Dr. Diaz, thank you. Just to my points to Ms. Harris is, again, thank you for taking such a complex process and bringing it in and bringing it back to the table and with clear terms, because again, and I know you know this being a previous board member, but it's not just talking to us, right? I still need to have it explained to me, but we're also trying to be transparent with our community about what's happening at the legislature, because unlike our awesome, wonderful Teachers Association, and again, round of applause to them and thank you to them for showing up at the legislature. I know that was weak, sorry. A lot of our community members don't have that time to be on there. So again, we're thankful for those who can be there fighting for more funding. But this is a chance to also explain to them, as you did, right, in clear terms, what's happening, budget from state budget increases to how we're spending that money. So just again, thank you, much appreciation for bringing this back to the table, explaining these complex terms, these various buckets of funding that we're pulling from, and how our salary is changing over the years. And as it'll always be my commitment, being a former teacher, living the struggle, to always fight to increase salaries all across the board. And just hearing that we're at $15 an hour for our non-exempt, right? Or yeah, employees and staff is wonderful news, because we know that they're most impacted by not having a livable wage. And so it is a time to celebrate. But again, I know we have a long ways to go to get people, to get our staff, to get our community to a salary where they are able to thrive and not have to live that struggle. But as of now, I don't have any questions. Just appreciation for bringing this to the table and communicating to our community all the work that has been done by our teachers, by our staff, by our cabinet, by our board to finally come to this point.
Agreed. Really, I promise I'll be quick. So I got to hang out with Dr. Diaz at our board retreat and probe him with questions and understanding, and it was wonderful because it just gave me a new space, which I rarely ever have because we always just see each other here. To ask questions and sound like a fool, and work through some things. So thank you for that, Dr. Diaz. So am I hearing that Phoenix Cell has our own minimum wage now of $15? Is that what I'm hearing? Once we approve this?
Yeah, Ms. Drew, members of the board, if approved, yes, the minimum wage in Phoenix Elementary will be $15 an hour. Again, that's something we've been dreaming of. And I think, Mr. Carrillo, to your point, any community members listening at home, we're hiring. We're hiring. And in addition to that $15 an hour, a competitive benefits package, you will also get 2 weeks at home with your kids over winter break paid. There are so many benefits to being a staff member at Phoenix Elementary. And if there is anybody at home listening, 602-257-4009, give us a call. Let us know what you're interested in. We're definitely hiring and we're looking for talent.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
What's that number again?
602-257-4009. If you want to sub, you want to be a bus aide, you want to work peer, you want to cross guard. There are so many wonderful opportunities that we have here. And then in terms of educators, because teachers talk to each other. I think one of the most powerful things that happen in our state through Red for Ed was teachers talking to each other on the lawn of the legislature and sort of comparing apples to apples. What do they do in your district? What do you do in your district? And I always say, you want to look at future behavior by looking at past behavior. This is a governing board, and this is a district that has improved large compensation increases for the better part of 5 years now. And again, a 22.5% increase in just 1 year. You can predict future behavior based on that. And so I think it will give people more confidence in thinking that Phoenix Elementary is a great place to bring your talents and to grow your career.
Agreed. And thank you, Miss Lauren, for the emails that we get. I do forward those out for our open jobs. So that I don't even know how to act. I don't even know what to do, because I feel like that's been one of like the constant things, like, yeah, but when are we going to get to 15, 15 an hour? So it's now I have to find a new gripe. Because here we are, and I just feel like I thought when you said you'll hear, or maybe it was Damon, I don't know. We'll talk about this in February. Will we get to 14? That it was going to be like this other long drawn out thing to get to 15. And it's like, here we are months later, and like I'm dead serious. I really was just reading this and having this discussion over the last week. I'm like, yeah, right. I'm not going to believe it till it actually happens. Like something's going to happen. And here we are. Like mind is blown. So question, since we are hiring, we have talked about these incentives. I know we're not going to rely on them for forever pay, but what are the incentives for getting hired on right now, if we have any?
Incentives for getting hired. We have a lot of them. You get to touch the lives of kids for years and years to come. As I shared with some student teachers earlier today, it's kind of morbid, and I apologize, but if you've ever been to the funeral of a teacher, it's packed.
Principals,
Packed
absolutely.
because of how many
I still go to
lives a
mine.
teacher touches. There's so few professions that have that type of impact on entire communities for years to come. And that's not just for our teachers, as we think about all the different folks that work in our schools that do great things. So I think the number one incentive is the opportunity to touch the lives of our students and their families. In addition to that, as a school district, we still believe that we're the last school district that offers a free medical and dental PPO. I say that because 20 years ago, every district had that. But as that has gotten whittled away, it's something that we're still very proud that we have here as well. In addition to the paid vacations that we have, one of the biggest draws that we have in terms of people thinking I want to work in a school district is working parents who don't know what to do when your kids have a week off in October and 2 weeks off in December and all these extra days off in November. Well, when you're working for a school district, it's a blessing. There's a member of our team who will tell you this is the reason she works in schools, so she can take this precious time with her kids. So I think there's a lot of incentives to work, as well as just the idea that we're moving in the right direction. I do think that there are some storm clouds ahead. Yes, this is a wonderful sunny day. But as we think about things like the AEL, that's going to come back as we get into February. And then the internal study that we're doing, although I'm very proud of this presentation, the work that we have ahead of us there is going to be very critical. It's been so long since we've looked in these internal structures. So in the same way that if you're doing a home renovation, you don't know what you're going to find in the walls. We're going to expect some of that, and we're going to see some of that. And it's going to kick up enough dust that we'll find other things that we need to work on. So I do think that the more things are coming ahead, but again, I'm hoping that this gives people the confidence and the encouragement that we have the right folks, the right processes, the right tools, the right know-how to do these really difficult things when it comes to our compensation structures.
Agreed.
I do have a question. So under the next steps in retroacting some of the pay, is there consideration for the hourly workers that with this pay increase, it might also jeopardize some of their benefits?
Yeah, that is a great question, Ms. Bueno. It is an odd thing that when we announce the compensation increases after excitement, we'll start to hear from people who are afraid that they're going to get kicked off of access, or they're going to cross some kind of threshold in terms of their taxes. And it's not a great state to be in. As I've engaged with other HR professionals, we don't want to encourage people to not earn salary so that they can stay on those public benefits. But at the same time, we need to recognize how important those are for them. There's a lot of different tools that public employees have when it comes to structuring their compensation when you look at tax deferred accounts, when you look at tax savings accounts as well. Now, we're not tax professionals. We can't give that kind of advice, but all of our employees have access to the Employee Assistance Program, where they can get up to 6 free financial counseling sessions. And those financial counseling sessions would include how to exercise and use some of those tools to change your tax liability, change your earned incomes into a manner to make sure that you're really maximizing the benefit of working for a public institution. Those are benefits that you do not get working for private places. And so there are different tools and flexibilities that we can point people to in order to get the assistance that they need.
And those types of tools and resources are available to support staff?
Yes, all of our staff receives the Employee Assistance Program, and they contact our Benefits and Wellness Supervisor, Crystal Senesi. She gives them the different resources that they can access to make sure they can get that kind of support.
Great, thank you. And just for comments, I appreciate all the work that you've done for this presentation, and I appreciate that under looking into the future that we do address to improve attendance and increase enrollment.
Thank you.
Agreed. I am glad that we are able to check this task for a little while and focus on enrollment and what's going on with attendance right now and what's going on with COVID. I personally am just getting over it, and it was the most weird, awkward experience, I think. So I can only imagine what it's like going on in other homes, but this is my first time. I had no idea what it was going to be like, what to expect. So it's still around and we're still learning. So I'm glad to hear that we can focus on those 2 other important things. Really quick question, as far as the benefits and wellness coordinator, does that person like visit schools? And I guess kind of, is that person accessible, or are we short-staffed and they've got to contact her? What does that look like? Again, I'm thinking about anyone that might have a concern about making too much money and just making sure that there's a way to close the gap there, that person knows there's resources to come reach out and take advantage of. Just, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Ms. Trejo, members of the board, members of the cabinet. We actually had an HRT meeting today where we talked about this. We just wrapped up our first round of HR office hours, where members of our staff embed themselves in schools and at all workplaces for a couple of hours. They bring goodies to make sure people come to the table so they can get information about things like the EAP or medical or whatnot, and bring any other things to them. It's our office on the move. In terms of us being short-staffed, we are short-staffed, and we had a decision. Do we keep our staff here managing the things that are happening at Emerson Court, including things like the contract addendums, or do we have our staff go out to the school sites to provide that frontline support? And that's the decision that we made. And so when we look at the delay that we had on the work agreements and the contract revisions, part of the reason that took so long was our staff was out at the schools and at the work sites and not at their desks working on those things. So when we've had to face that sort of challenge, that's the way we've been navigating it. The next round of HR being embedded in our schools is about to start with our flu shot clinics, also coordinated by our Benefits and Wellness Supervisor, Ms. Crystal Senesi, where we bring flu shots and other vaccines to all of our schools and to all of our work sites over the weeks of the September 26th and October 3rd. We'll come around a third time around the holidays, usually with like milk and cookies. And then we will come around in February as we start to talk about the contract processes. And then again in April, as we start talking about work agreements for support staff. So we do make sure that there's you're seeing me use my hand, there's a cycle that we use every year to make sure that we're embedding ourselves into our schools, that we're sharing this information and these resources with our staff.
Thank you. I feel better now. I want to get the wording right. If there aren't any more questions, do we have a motion to approve our revised salary schedules as presented?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Hearing no other questions, Ms. Miriam, may we please have a roll call vote to approve this item?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
Laura Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you. With that, our motion passes. Thank you all so very much. Right, settle myself down. Okay, we're gonna move on to item H for our board reports and requests. So firstly, if I might, request if Dr. Diaz, Dr. Laura Diaz is available and has any information she wanted to share regarding, what reaching out to our community looks like. I would appreciate the feedback. She might have stepped away from our.
Sorry,
there she-
Madam
Okay.
President, I was trying to get off of mute. If I may, it would be helpful to know, and I apologize for missing this, but what were some high level ideas from the board on this?
Well, high level, I'm not sure. You're gonna be able to interpret that way better than I am. But this is really just kind of I guess my recommendation, or I didn't even really have one, just what does that look like? Remember when you and I were first elected and we wanted to do like coffee visits with parents and things like that, and it was weird, and we didn't do them because we didn't want to step on toes, but something sort of like that. I'm trying to get a vision of what that looks like. So Ms. Bueno had some recommendations, and of course, I'm not going to remember what they are, but I guess those cafecito meetings like Mr. Fuentes just participated in with his community. Two of our board members and Dr. Davila Hagi got to attend. So just kind of, I guess those are the few examples that pop up, but I'm not too sure. So I definitely want to know what your vision is for connecting with our community and what that looks like to you, because you've actually, well, we both, when we're out campaigning and talking, you know, those many years back, I guess I kind of relate it to something like that, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I am definitely super excited to hear that the board is considering this. And I think that really what would be helpful for us is having more of like a strategic defined plan that is almost like calendared out for what that looks like for an academic year. And I know I won't necessarily be there for this, but in just thinking about this very strategically, you know, getting into those neighborhoods that are not often reached and partnering with local organizations that are already doing something. So we're not necessarily having to recreate the wheel, and we're partnering with the communities. Or it could even be something like, you know, what is Ranch Market doing, for instance, and how can two of us be there to support Ranch Market and you know, hand out certain information for a future meet and greet with the school board members. So I view it kind of in two phases, is that outreach piece of going into the community and just delivering information on the second piece, which is intentional forums with community members, both that would be held virtually and in person. So so I'm just thinking of it more like high level strategy. How can you calendar out and be very intentional with those two categories of outreach and then actual structured meetings.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was going for, and I hadn't even written that part down, like the vendor connections, that kind of thing. Unions, of course, things like that. So I super appreciate that because it was more, I'll say low level, more informal stuff that was coming to mind. So I do think that's going to be super helpful to get a timeline in order for the school year and how we can kind of incorporate both the vendor part and then the actual, I don't know, the macro versus micro level opportunities. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Of
Anything
course.
further before we move on? Any board reports and requests, I mean?
I actually do have actually, I'll wait for agenda items.
Okay.
I do have a request in our board update, if we're able to get the information of which schools do not have the family engagement specialist.
Thank you very much. Any other requests?
Yeah, I just like a board update on what our policy says about RFPs, in terms of efforts that we're taking to have an equitable process. And then that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you guys very much. With that, we'll move on to future agenda items. Dr. Diaz, do you want to share yours first?
Yeah, so apologies if this has already been said, but I would like to have an agenda item before January. So any of the meetings before January where we discuss the district strategy for the 8th grade transition into high school.
Thank you very much, Dr. Diaz. And duly noted that we will get that carried out before January. Any other future agenda items? With that, hearing none, we will move on to adjournment. Item I, do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Reggie Carrillo, I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. With that, Ms. Merriman, will please have a roll call vote to adjourn our meeting at 6:56 p.m.
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
and Laura Diaz.
Hi.
Thank you. With that, our motion passes and we will adjourn at 6:56. And our next meeting is that we've got a public hearing scheduled next Tuesday, September 27th at Dunbar Elementary. We hope to hear from our public regarding our teacher shortage. But after that, we do have a board meeting scheduled for October the 4th, which will be here back in our district office. Any questions, definitely reach out to the district. If I remember correctly, the phone number is 602-257-2912. That would, I think, reach Miss Miriam or our superintendent. Other than that, thank you all for being here. Have a great rest of your evening and we'll see you next week.